to Changing the Sales Game on webtalkradio.com. I am your host, Connie Whitman. You know, I'm happy that you're here. So as you listen to the show every week, a couple of things, right? I hope you feel my passion that my guests and I really do want to help you change your sales game and whatever that means to you. And the idea is, as we have our conversation, we share tips, strategies, ideas, and hopefully as soon as you're done listening to the show, you actually go and apply them. So to get you're in the zone of our conversation today, I'm going to start with my motivational quote, which is by Adair. And he says, or she says, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you hire an amateur. Now, you know the old saying, penny wise, dollar foolish? I see it all the time, where organizations hire to fill a job and not necessarily the perfect fit for long-term growth and the employee's growth as well. Now, the revolving door seems to be the circumstance we find ourselves in. I think I just find way too often. So is there a better way to hire the right people who will exceed your wildest dreams? Of course, the answer is yes. And of course, I have an amazing guest named Gabe Lullo. Gabe's expertise in sales, marketing, recruiting, and management began when he started his own business after graduation from the University of Hartford. He owned and operated his own sales, training, and marketing firm for more than a decade, and he excelled in training sales and marketing professionals. And additionally, Gabe has had a successful career in executive recruiting. Now, he's been instrumental in expanding the company's search and placement for IT, software development, sales, customer success, marketing, executive leadership, and the list goes on. Gabe's most recent success has been with his company called Alley Oop. We'll talk about that in a minute. For many years, he's been working to build and grow the company by focusing on culture, environment, customer success, and of course, sales. So Gabe, thank you for coming on and joining me today.
Well, thank you very much, Connie. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm super excited to get into this with you.
Yes, this is really important because our human capital, kind of the backbone of whether we're successful with business growth, sales, and all those other things, right? It's like we put the square peg in the round hole, ain't cool, and it ends up costing us so much money on the back end. So first question for you. Yeah. So first question, Gabe, is can you share just some insights into maybe the current trends and challenges that you're seeing in the world of sales and how they're actually impacting the need for recruiting and actually the training, right? And getting those good people.
Yeah. So what Alley Oop does and what we focus on is really the top of funnel in the sales cycle. And what I mean by that is appointment setting, demo creation, sales development. 20 years ago, SDRs weren't even a thing, right? It was account executives doing the whole sales cycle and starting from prospecting to closing the deal. Software companies, tech companies were really the first businesses starting to adopt appointment setters and creating the role of sales development. And so we came in right around that time to provide a outsourcing function for companies, big and small, to bring their appointment setters to us as opposed to having to figure out how to do it themselves. Because it truly is, I say the hardest part of sales, right, is getting someone to say yes to the first meeting. Getting money from them is usually hard too, but you've been talking to them for a while up until that point. So starting the conversation is the hard part. And what companies typically do, to your question, is they're hiring kids out of college and kids out of, bartenders and people green the sales for really the first and most important impression and most important part of the sales life cycle to do this job. And it has the highest turnover in the sales space too. So if you look at the Bridge report last year, over 60% of SDRs weren't at that company after 12 months. So if you're going to be churning half of the people you're hiring, you're obviously always looking for good people, and it's hard to train them. And even though you do train them, then they go find a job across the street at one of your competitors. So keeping that human capital going has been a really big challenge right now. And hiring gap is really hard to handle in that space. Does that answer your question?
It doesn't. And here's my next follow-up to that is, are you seeing as the next generation comes into play and working, is it becoming more difficult to fill positions and train them, and not only train them but getting them to stay? Or are the statistics with this next generation coming up, are they even moving more frequently than, say, the millennials did? Are you seeing any stats on that yet?
We are. And there's another thing that's really interesting to add to that is almost like, we're all saying now post COVID, but post COVID here, right? The whole return to work and to come back to the office. And this generation is like, no, right? They're just like, I'm not going back to an office. Or maybe they're starting their career and, now, and they're like, why would I go work in an office when I can do all of these things remote? So we're a remote first company. All of our employees are fully remote. We're fully US based, but what we're finding is that our clients are having a really big need to not only keep the retention higher and keep the employees in force, but they're having a hard time bringing them back to the office, and they're kind of don't know what to do with that. So yeah, it is very challenging, but at the end of the day, it's also more challenging because they're not excited. A lot of our sales teams, our clients, are not excited about the remote world because it's hard to manage remote, especially for an entry level type sales job, because you're also not hiring a lot of them either, right? So doing the engineering, doing in software development remotely is a lot easier to do because you're sitting in front of your computer programming all day long. But having conversations and listening to people and making sure they're doing the right thing on the phone and in the email, it's hard to manage that more remotely than not. And so that's what we specialize in, and that's what we're seeing right now with our clients.
Because Gabe, think about it, working remote, and I'm not judging either way, hybrid, all remote, all,
Right.
live. There's no judgment here, but these kids, I feel, and I see it, I have a 24 and a 27-year-old.
Yeah.
I see their interpersonal, and they have me as a mom. So they're,
Right.
lucky. In my world, they're lucky. In their world, they think, oh my God, have her for a mom for a day. But here, my point is, my kids are really good with interpersonal skills, because when they were little, we'd go to hockey and they'd see the dad and we go, okay, you go up, you shake hands, you lean, you look them in the eye and you say, hey, it's
Right.
good to see you, right? Or whatever. How many kids don't have that because they don't have a
Right.
parent, right, who does what I do for a living? The interpersonal skills. And now we're talking about sales, to engage someone on the phone, to get them to agree to their time now, to set up a time to meet. Are you seeing that as part of the training? That did you always have it, maybe, or is it amplified, or has there been any change with that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I just did a post on LinkedIn about this, about introverts and how introverts are great at sales development. But it's very different. You have to manage them so differently. I think I'm an introvert in sheep's clothing, so I pretend to be an extrovert, right? Or extrovert, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, one of the big because again, we're a training company. We train our these reps, right? Of course, every day. But one of the big training topics when we're bringing on a new salesperson is personality training and understanding different people and why they do the things that they do, and understanding their personas and how to respond and react to that on live phone calls. And so trying to pull that extrovert, people, interpersonal EQ, right? All of that stuff out of people of this generation remotely is interesting. So what we do is we are very video focused. Every time we make phone calls internally, we're on video. When we do all of our hands-on, all hands meeting, our town halls, we're all on video. We do like power ups in the morning where we're like just checking in with your team captain and kind of going over your goals for the day. If you're in an office, you go around the cubicle. When I used to have an office, and go around the sales floor and with my coffee and high five everybody. It's good to see you. How are things? How was the weekend? Right? What are you working on today? What you focusing on today? And doing that eye to eye contact is super important. So how do you do that in a remote world? Right? Well, we do it with a recorded video. So what we do is actually everyone in our company get on a recorded video and go through looking in the camera what I'm doing today, how I'm doing today, how I'm feeling today, what I'm struggling with today. And so we try to use video as much as possible to keep that culture and that human interaction up as much as we can.
And we have to do it. It's important. The
Yeah.
interpersonal skills, especially in the sales world, if you're
Right.
not connecting, because you know, right, with the iceberg, 95% of our connectivity to other humans is emotional and subconscious. It's not conscious. So if I'm awkward and I'm staggering to think of the right words, and you know, my body language is off, it's gonna come out through the verbal, right?
Yeah.
So all of these things are so important. And I almost think that COVID forced us to learn how to amplify personality, communication skills, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Because on Zoom, you're losing the lower part of the body from a body language perspective.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I think most of our body language and how we're being perceived is really through our hands and through our facial expression. So this is important, that they need to develop the skill on Zoom, because it's still going to come through whether you're on the phone or if you're actually in a video conference of some sort, right?
Yeah. Okay. So you're a pro, and I can see like you and I right now framing from a cropping standpoint is actually almost identical. So if you can see us, you would be seeing, us literally, you can see, shoulders and everything in my hands. But what we decided to do for this exact reason, so super small, but it changed the world of our culture. If you look at a laptop, right, and you look down in a laptop on a computer, you get that nostril effect, right? You got the camera sticking up in your nostril, right? You got your head only, right? You only see the person's face.
Or
And you got this,
where's
you got a
Waldo?
face and a nostril. Like, frankly, that's not a very good way of communicating, right? Video wise. So we've taken it a step further. Not just do we do video, but we also bought anyone who doesn't have an external webcam, $50 webcam in the whole company, so they can place their webcam in a structure where it actually looks like you're sitting across someone's desk. And I can use my hands and I can do my body language, and I can, I'm Italian, so I speak with my hands, right? But the reality is like, we do this type of, body language and communication is so important. Read any book on how body language is so much more valuable than just the spoken word. And yeah, we actually create that type of what we call camera ready experience, because if we're going to be remote only and we're going to work around the world, where we do want to interact as humanly as possible, especially in sales, right? So that's why we do it the way we do it.
It works, because I know when I'm
Yeah.
in networking and there's 20 people, you're a little tiny thumbnail, and
Right.
inevitably I'll get in the chat. Can you give me your email? I haven't even met these people, right? I'm just sitting there listening like everybody else,
Yeah.
and behaving, trying to behave anyway. But I'll get in the chat. Do you have an email? I'd love to connect with you. I could see your energy. And I laugh because I'm sitting here, I'm not doing anything. They can feel but think about it, right? My eyes, maybe the speaker's speaking, and maybe I nodded my head with something they said. So all of those movements are shown and come through, even on the webcam or the camera of the computer. It matters. It all matters, right? At the end of the
100%.
day. So it's just interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like look at the news and look at all the the people on TV. It's like, we're not movie stars, but it feels like it sometimes, right? We're all like TV people. Like, we're now at the end of the day, like, this is our way of communicating, is a microphone and a camera. And so I'm not going to tell you what type of shoes I'm wearing, because I'm wearing flip flops. But the reality is, like, we're on microphones and cameras all day long, and that's how it works. But it's we've been seeing it on TV our whole lives, and now we're just doing it that way, and it's different. But there are things that you can do: camera position, external cameras, getting good quality audio, like, zooming out, like, those little things are super important. And that's how we're doing it to our clients, to our prospects. And what's interesting is when we're presenting our information and our programs to our clients, we're like, oh, these guys got their shit together, and it's cool.
Absolutely. Showing up prepared matters too, right? What are some of the key qualities or skills that you look for when you're recruiting the sales professionals? And, how do you identify that potential in a candidate to, move them forward to one of your clients?
So the things we look for are the things that aren't on the resume, and the resume, I think right now, is just, really a guide to start the conversation, and then digging into the interpersonal skills, and really how, when the rubber meets the road, when they're pushed in the corner, when they're backed, is against the wall, like how do they respond and react? So a big question I like to ask is, hey, tell me an example of what you had to deal with personally or professionally where you were told no, or you were getting rejected, or it wasn't going your way, or you're dealing with an angry customer. And I want to hear examples. Sometimes good people who can interview already automatically know that, but I always try to lead with, hey, give me an example, right? I don't want to hear just, oh, wow, I was the 120% in my company last month. Like, great. Like, we probably wouldn't be interviewing that because we saw that on the resume, but what did you do when it wasn't working? Right? What did tell me about what you did when you were the worst rep in the company and how you got to the best rep in the company? And that's what I want to see. I want to see those people with grit. I want to see how we can get grit out of those conversations. I want to see people who are just kind of, on scrappy underdogs. Those are people we like to hire in this role. Because those are the ones that are knocking on the doors and making a lot of phone calls and, hearing the word no 7, 8 times out of 10. And we want to know how you're going to respond to that type of rejection. Does it motivate you? And do you come out swinging, or do you call it a day and try to get out as early as possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it matters. And the no's are part of the job.
Yeah.
So early in my career, right, 40 years ago, I would hear the every no brings you closer to a yes. And I
Yeah.
believed it because statistically, you can't get
Yeah.
a no 100% of the time, but you can't get a yes 100% of the time.
Right.
Those no's, it's like, already, I'm on to the next one. This might be my yes. I love that question, by the way, that you asked. And my kids are 24, 27. My older son, he was diagnosed in second grade with a very slight auditory processing, issue.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the first interviews after grad, he played hockey, collegiate, the whole thing. He's brilliant. So the school helped him master, right, the tools he needed to adjust with his auditory processing. Well, fast forward, he gets in an interview on Zoom, had his suit on, probably had
Yep.
shorts on, but he had his suit on, with the
Perfect.
tie. And it was cute. And the one of the executives, there's like 5 people interviewing him. So talk about stress, right? But he said to him, tell me something that's not on your resume that's been a challenge for you that you had to overcome. So my son, was very transparent and said, I had this, auditory processing. And he said, but here's the thing. I had to work harder than every other kid in school because they were getting
Right.
A's and I'm still home studying. Right. And I had a lot of failures to figure out how to adjust, et cetera. And as a college grad playing college hockey, all of those things. The executive said, I didn't expect that answer. Thank you
Right.
for being so transparent. So then later on, it was like one of his first interviews. My son said, did I do the right thing? I said, you did the right thing. If
100%.
that person doesn't want to hire you because you have an auditory processing, when you've not only overcome it, but surpassed it because you had
Right.
to work 100% harder than everybody else, you should be the one they're hiring. I said, I'm so proud of you for being vulnerable like that. He goes, Mom, it just felt like the right answer. But
Right.
that's what we're looking for, those authentic answers that aren't going to show up on a resume.
100%. I mean, we all like the movie Rudy, right? Maybe I'm
Oh,
dating myself, but
yeah.
who's not going to hire Rudy? He's be the best salesperson in the world. And so, like, but we don't know that on a resume. You actually, if you had it on a resume, he sat the bench the whole time, you probably wouldn't even want to interview him. But
Yep.
once you start learning about the story and learning about his experience and what he had to go through, like, okay, sign me up. He's my first guy because I bet you he'll be the top guy in our company, in the next 3 to 6 months. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just, so there's a guy that we hired years ago, and he had at age 21 a stroke, and he
Oh,
literally almost died, and he was in the hospital, and it was crazy what happened to him, and he was telling me this in the interview process, and frankly, he didn't look good on the resume. He had like a customer service job, never did sales, kind of worked at a gym. And he told me this whole story and how much he really needed this only child taking care of his mom. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I almost felt bad, but this guy had so much grit and has persevered so much at such a young age. We hired him. Now here's the funny part. He was really, really bad. So I was going around the cubicles on the sales floor, and I was like, hey, where is this guy? Where is this guy? And literally he was under his desk making phone calls, sitting under his desk making phone calls because he was so shy and so nervous for his colleagues to hear him on the phone. And I literally gave him the conference room key so he can make calls in there because he was so shy. Well, fast forward after 90 days of doing that and coaching and working with him, he was the number one rep for 2 years in a row. Every month, number one rep for 2 years in a row. And it made a ton of money. And it was all, and we hired him, but it was because of that story. And it was really interesting.
We think it's all about the numbers, and it is about the numbers in sales.
Sure.
It's really about the behaviors and you coached him, you saw something, he was raw, and you were able to really coach him to become the superstar because he had the grit underneath. He just needed the refinement. And that's part of our job as leaders in this industry. Right. We have to coach people to the next level. It doesn't just happen by accident. And I don't know about you, but I see this often. Some of the leaders shouldn't be leaders because it's like, well, you went through training. Why aren't you doing it? Because the learning happens once you get trained. Now you're doing it live. You need people to listen to you, say, oh, you said this, that was really good. Let's change it to this. Let's add this to the piece of the puzzle. If you're not getting that constant feedback and upgrade, if you will, almost to the operating system within what you're learning and executing, what are we doing? We're setting people up for failure. And now they're going home, well, I suck. I'm never getting a sales job again. Meanwhile, it could be that kid that became the superstar and was able to make a lot of money. And, oh, by the way, take care of his family. So, we have to play the longer game, I think, in sales. And we have to get away from what did you do for me today? And really look at what is the true potential of the client, of the employee, of the team, of the organization. All of those pieces of the puzzle matter. Behaviors drive the numbers. We can't just look at numbers anymore.
Yep, I totally agree. I mean, it's a secret, it's a recipe, but I think what I also am seeing, like we just actually announced the new incentive plans for the month for the final quarter of the year. And I think a lot of managers just do that too, right? They just throw bigger and bigger carrots in front of people and thinking they're good managers, right? Like not only did we put together a phenomenal incentive program for the fourth quarter, but we know that we're also supporting them along the way. We're not just saying, oh yeah, we'll give you more PTO and more money and a big screen TV. Okay, great. So what? It's like, do those things, sure, incentivize, sure, but just don't think you're a good manager because you're throwing carrots against people. You gotta support them, you gotta back them up, and you gotta tell them when they're messed up because people want to know when they're messing up. It's okay to tell them that, hey, this was a bad call, but you gotta be bad before you're good, and you got to be good before you're great, and let them know it's okay and it's normal to be bad. And it's my job to get you to not be bad and help you along the way.
It's interesting because everybody thinks money is the motivator, and that's not always true. All the stats show you, Gallup's always doing these surveys. And it's the attaboys, right? It's the pat on the back. It's those coaching. It's that reinforcement. It's that you've got this. We're going to work together. We're going to get you there. That understanding of that empathy is more important oftentimes than the money. Listen, some people, probably 20% of the people in sales are just out for the money. But I believe that 80% really, really wants to do a good job, wants to please the boss, the company, and really wants to show up for the client. That's the reward. And hey, man, I can make some good money while I'm doing this. Wow, I have a really good job, right? I love what I do. We have the ability to create that kind of synergy within an organization.
Yeah, everyone like the love languages, right? It's a big buzz. Like all these are the love languages. Well, it's the same thing with sales. Like what motivates you, right? And everyone thinks it's money, money, money. Listen, I'm a money motivated guy, but I'll tell you what, my mentor said to me a long time ago. He said, people will work for money, but people will die for recognition. Yeah. And it's like the attaboys, the pat on the backs, the great jobs, your name in lights at the top 10 at the end of the month, right? Reviewing your name, in the sales kickoff. Yeah, money's great. But knowing that, hey, I was the best this quarter, I was the best. And then once you get all that recognition, people like the person who emailed you and say, hey, can I get your email, right? Or ask you for the email on the call, because now they come to you wanting for help and support, and then turning around and helping other people. And that's when you automatically go, oh crap, I'm now a leader. I got to get better at this. I got to now start teaching people how to do it. So I got to learn how to teach, right? And going that way.
It's all good though, right? It's all skill
Yeah.
development. It makes us,
Right.
with Steve Jobs, people say, and especially young people, right, that follow me and my corporate clients, they have a lot of young people coming in. So
Sure.
they'll say to me, well, what's the next step? I don't know. Well, how did you do it? I don't know. And they,
Just
I
trying to
make them
figure it
laugh.
out.
Trying to figure every day, man. We're trying to figure it out. But here's the thing, and I love that it was one of the Ivy Leagues that Jobs, before he passed, had spoken at. Obviously, before he passed, that was Captain Obvious here today, Gabe. But he said, you look at what's my next step, and he says to this graduating class, I can look back now and go, all the steps made sense. But at the
Yeah.
time, it's like, that's crapshoot. Am I doing the right thing? Oh no, let me take the step. The
Right.
thing is, when you're in motion, it's easy to shift around than going from a static position. So taking the step, whether it's good or bad, and you said, even if you mess up really bad, you're going to
Yep.
learn from that and go, I'm never doing that again. And that
Yeah.
projects you forward. So when you do look back, all of those steps make perfect sense, right?
Yeah, I think everyone's like wondering or asking, do I go left? Do I go right? Do I go left? Do I go right? What should I do? Should I go left? What do you think? Do you think I should go left? I don't know. The gurus are saying going left. And my response is just go forward. Like
Yeah.
stop figuring, like just move forward
Just do it.
and don't look left or right and you'll figure it out. And you'll get support along the way.
Yeah. What are the most common mistakes or misconceptions that you see? And then so you see them, but then in translation, how do you adjust for them, train them, and get them to not be issues, right? But I bet you see some common mistakes.
For like new salespeople, the common mistakes that I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest thing I always say this is, going back to numbers, is people aren't willing to put in the work. Like you have to, make up in numbers what you lack in skill. And what I mean by that is you have to come into a company and really judge yourself next to the other people. I know that's not cliche, the right thing to say, like, oh, just judge yourself. But at the end of the day, like if you got 5 people on your team and they're making 100 calls a day, make 200 calls.
Mm.
Like come in there and outwork everybody else because 2 things are going to happen. One, you're going to learn a lot because you're going to be failing more and you're going to really get better and you're going to kind of get those calluses that emotional calluses that you need to go through that rejection. And then your attitude is just going to change. You're like, wow, my attitude is really, really positive, and you're not focusing on the no's, you're focusing on getting those good results. And I just think coming in and just working really, really hard at the beginning is something you focus on. I think the biggest mistakes is people try to be like experts day one. And it's
Mm.
like learn, 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 learn. And it's like, I appreciate all that, but you don't have to be a subject matter expert to be good at this. And you just need to have a good attitude. And you have to work your tail off. And so there's something I like to say. I'd rather, see ignorance on fire than knowledge on ice,
Yeah.
right? Ignorance on fire. Like I'm all day. I want to talk to someone because they're exciting to talk to. And but somebody who is like all these facts and figures and is boring, it's just not exciting to me. So I think a lot of people think of the wrong things as the most important things.
Yeah. And we have to be competitive. Listen,
Yeah,
everybody isn't wired competitively, right? So I know that's, I think, why sales found me, or I ended up, it was by accident. It's not like I was in college and, oh yeah, I'm going to be in sales and I'm going to make a gazillion dollars. Never even dawned on me that that's what I was going to do, right? It found me. But here's the thing, I'm competitive. So if you were in my territory and you were beating me, oh, that was not okay. I doubled
100%.
down to every time, because I want my name to be at the top of the leaderboard. And it wasn't the money. Yes, the
Right.
money came. It was because I'm so freaking competitive. I thought, oh no. When they call or when there's conferences, oh, I'm going to be there. People are going to know me, good or bad, right? It wasn't about the money for me. It was about the recognition and about being valued. And I'll share something else. When you said, you don't have to be the subject matter expert. I remember when I worked for one of the banks and I was a financial advisor, and one of my colleagues, our offices were right next to each other. She did wealth. So she did 500,000 and up, and I did under the 500,000. And I remember one time I went in, I had one of the lenders had sent me a business client and he had maybe 250 with our bank. My gut though was saying, this dude, I know he's got more money. So I went in and I said to her, listen, let's be efficient here. We got to make money. We got to honor the
Right.
client. Can you go on the call with me? She did. It ended up being hers. This client loved us because we saved him time, we saved him effort, and meanwhile we still made the money. I got the referral for bringing her in, and he gave us referrals. He gave us both referrals and started to introduce us to his friends. Well, fast forward, she was the number one rep in wealth. I was the number one financial advisor in the bank, and there were
Right.
hundreds. And so finally the two division heads came to us and said, what are you guys doing down there? And so we shared, and they said, can you come to the different regions and share your story? We said, sure, of course, we love it. Our name was getting known. We
Right.
go, we share our story. Here's the punchline, Gabe. Guess how many of the other teams, the financial advisors, wealth managers, guess how many of them did what her name is Debbie, what Debbie and I did? Guess how many?
Not many.
None. None.
Unbelievable.
None. It was that poverty mentality. I'm not giving her the lead because if I could still walk away with
100%.
my 300,000 or 400,000, I'm making the money.
Yep.
Meanwhile, we were going to the bank, like we
Right.
were making good money, and we were doing the right thing, and we were
Exactly.
supporting each other as well. Like it was such a great experience. And then that's how we both got into leadership, and we became SVPs, and while the
Yeah.
other ones were still the reps, right? Because we learned, we grew, we shared, we experienced, we taught, we did all of those leadership skills that we forget, and we think it's right. It's about the numbers. It is about the numbers, but the behaviors really do drive the numbers. We're almost out of
Yeah,
time,
you said the name twice. You said the word twice, experience. Like I think that was the biggest part is you made the experience happen for the client, and then they came back with all these referrals, and then those were obviously well worth it, but more easy to close, of course. But it's all about the experience, and I think that's attitude and drive is there. But to your point, if you're in sales and you're not competitive, you're not gonna be in sales very long. So there's no participation awards here, right? You got to compete, and you got to have healthy and not cutthroat like that company was, but more of a collective competition, which what you guys were doing, which is great.
And here's the kicker. Why everybody's like, how are you doing so well? The leads I were getting from her weren't 25,000. They were 400,000.
Right at
You know
your
what I mean?
threshold. They're top of your threshold. Exactly.
Yeah. So we ended up working a heck of a lot less and made a heck of a lot more because the
Yeah.
numbers did play into the equation, but you got to do the right thing. And I think
100%.
that's another thing in sales. We have a bad rap, but when you do the right thing, it differentiates you from the competitors out there. And it really makes you shine so bright and beautiful that people do want it. You're sought out then, right? People want to do business with you.
Right.
My friend, I think we have more shows than us. I don't know if you're game or not. I love your energy and I love your thoughtful answers.
Thank you.
Last minute that we have, is there any tip where you see sales teams, and that they need your help? What would be the catalyst for them to say, holy crap, I need to talk to Dave and his team? What would that be for that trigger, if you will?
Well, there's really two types of companies. There's companies that have big sales teams already. And for them, I would say, listen, if your account executives are spending any more than 60% of their day prospecting, stop doing that immediately. You're burning money, and you should be able to hire a company like us or build your own of a sales development function that will absolutely make you more money. It may sound weird that you're hiring two salespeople now instead of one. Well, reality, like your team worked together with you and your friend, it's the same concept here. Having two people work that deal and having and obeying their role will yield you a ton of revenue. If you're a newer company and you've never done this before, and you know that you may be like a founder-led sales type of company, and you need a sales development engine or an outbound engine, don't try to figure it out by yourself. It'll be super expensive. That's why you probably outsource your marketing. It's probably why you outsource your HR. It's probably why you outsource your accounting firm, right? So outsource your sales development. It's no different than outsourcing any other function in your business. A lot of people don't know it's possible. And then companies like ours will help you build it so it's eventually under your culture and your brand and your umbrella. So that's my advice for both of those types of clients.
Small business owners, because I know I have executives obviously that follow me because most of my clients are on the corporate side, but for the small business owner, they're really good at selling their stuff because it's their baby. They've created it. They know it. They could talk. They're passionate, right? Does that work with what you're saying for that one man shop almost? Because now
Yeah.
if I can send that resource
Yeah.
out, my time is spent making the money then.
Right. Well, it's
Right.
interesting. It's the number one thing we hear from a founder-led sales, which we call it, person, is like, hey, no one can do what I can do. No one knows me, my brand, my product, my tech, my service better than me. Well, that's a good thing about a sales development reps. We're not trying to be you. We're actually promoting you, right? We're the trailer to the movie, and you're the movie, and we're the trailer, right?
Love
We're
it.
not going to say this is the end of the movie in the trailer. That would ruin the movie. We're not going to give the best parts of the movie in the trailer. We're just going to be a punchy, quick 2 to 3 minute call
Yeah.
that will give you the high level overview of what you do and why it's important to talk to you. And it actually edifies those experts and those leaders even more. So when they do have those conversations, they're hearing that conversation from an authority, from a consultant type of approach, and it actually elevates the calls, not takes it away.
Love it. Love it. Right. Having the right
Cool.
people doing the right job. And
Yeah,
then we get to do our job, right, and
exactly.
amplify,
Respect your
because
role. Exactly.
no one could do it better than me, right? No one could do it
Nope.
better than you. But we
Yep.
can have somebody. I love that. A movie trailer. That was such
Yeah.
a good, I'm visual. So that was great.
Well, Alley Oop is the name of our company. So if you're a basketball fan, you know what it is, right? We're not the deal. We're not slam dunking. We're not the show. We're not the Michael Jordan. We're the Scottie Pippen. We're the ones that throwing it up in the air. You're coming in and slamming it. You know what I mean? So it's like we're the alley oop, and
Yeah.
that's how our focus is, and that's what our brand's all about.
I love it. Again, visual and fun, visual and fun at the same time. So
Yeah.
guys, if you have a question, reach out to Gabe directly. It's Gabe Lullo. So it's GLULLO at allyoop.io. And I will put all of this in the show notes. So don't panic if you're driving, right? That you're listening. Website is allyoop.io. I love allyoop. I love saying it. It's a fun allyoop.io.
Yeah.
I need to get a life, right? And then I know Nicole and I were talking, your manager, your VP of I guess marketing, and she's going to send me a link. You probably don't know what that is. So you don't know what that is, right, Gabe? Because she and
No.
I literally talked 5 minutes before. Okay. So everybody listening, I promise you there's going to be a free gift. So if you're curious, the show notes, it will have the link to the free gift. Check it out. If you're the least bit twinge of this guy sounds pretty cool to me, I highly recommend getting that free gift. And then you'll get on his email list and he'll be able to nurture you. So you get to know who he is, what Alley Oop is all about, and potentially how we can help you. So again, look for that link. All the links will be in the show notes for you for easy finding. Okay. Gabe, thank you so much. Just a great show. This is important. To me, it's the first step of the sales process of getting the leads. People say to me, I need help with the sales conversation, right? That's my zone of genius. Great. How many, what's your ratios? They look at me and they go, well, I get one call a month. Well, there's your problem.
Right.
Forget about hiring me. You need to get leads in the door. And then we can work on what is that process of having the better conversations, cross-selling, referrals, all of that. But you got to get the leads in the door. So Gabe is your guy.
Thanks so much, Connie.
Okay, thanks again for being on. I think you're amazing. Okay, you guys, I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are in changing your sales game. My guest, Gabe, and I, we share these tips, ideas, strategies, thoughts, even sometimes just a shift in thought can be exponentially helpful. So some of the ideas and things that we talked about today, I do hope that you take that information and apply it. Information's a beautiful thing. If you do nothing with it, it's just information. We start applying it. That's when we start getting reactions, and action is what we need to be the catalyst to make the change we're looking for. So again, thank you for listening to Changing the Sales Game with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I truly am honored to have you on this journey of changing your sales game. And I always hope my guests and I share something thought-provoking for you to stop listening after stopping listening to the show, that you have an action that you can actually take. I love you all. I will see you all next week. Have a great week. Be inspired. Turn it on, man. Shine your light. I love you. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time.